Joining us now from Meadowlark Media's New York studio, where he's hobnobbing around with another one of those obnoxious liberal elites, Pablo Torre. Chris Hayes is with us. He's the host of All In weeknights on MSNBC, that propaganda outlet for the woke. He's the author of a new book called The Siren's Call. It's not about Trump or politics. It's about attention. And I want to get into some of the inauguration with him because he's written a think piece for the New York Times about how content is king, how, of course, Musk buys talking and Trump rules the world, that content is king now. Attention is the currency of the day. So, Chris, thank you for joining us. And you wrote this because what? Because you realize you, too, are a content merchant, an addict.
I'm both an addict. I'm both a seller and a user. I don't know if you feel the same way, but yes, I am my livelihood is keeping people's attention. I'm also just compulsively online, and even if those are personal dispositions, I feel like we live in an age in which attention is the most important resource. It's the most valuable, and we're watching it play out before our eyes. I mean, yesterday was a spectacle that perfectly illustrated this point. Elon Musk, Donald Trump, like, these guys are where they are for a reason, and a lot of it has to do with how they manipulate attention.
Well, tell me about how you experienced Elon Musk and Bezos and Zuckerberg at the inauguration with better seats than the incoming cabinet, a cabinet that is not unlike the cabinets in many white households, all white.
Well, it was almost too on the nose. There's so many things that Trump does that are on the nose, passed on the nose. It was a really striking image. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before. You had, the head of Google, the head of Apple, the head of Amazon, the head of Facebook, the head of Tesla X. I mean, all standing in a line. They're all shot there. And it was pretty funny. I saw someone, I forget who it was, but someone was like, well, it's interesting that when we did his rallies, like, the people behind him were like coal miners and like first responders and construction workers. And suddenly he gets elected president. Like, they can't really find any coal miners up there on the dais. You can't really find any first responders, but the most powerful billionaires are up there. And I thought, it was an intentional bit of symbolism. It wasn't like a mistake. It wasn't like they were like, oh, where do we seat these guys? Oh, I'll just give them the front row. They were saying something there. Both the people attending, Bezos et al., and Trump and his crew.
But when you examine it from that angle, right, like, of course, it can be dark humor, but the idea of a party running on against elite and big tech, and then to see Bezos, who owns a newspaper as a side toy, not give any kind of endorsement, sit out waiting for this moment, and Zuckerberg also fights for our attention, and Musk tries to outbuy them all while following the president around like a lapdog as if he, wants to buy America while he's at it. Like, when you're watching all of that, you're experiencing that how as an American?
As an American, I feel anger, but I also feel a kind of cold sense of clarity. In some ways, I've actually thought that the last few weeks have been usefully clarifying. The interests of these folks are aligned with the interests of Donald Trump. And that they were working very hard to obscure that before, but I think that it's useful for everyone to see it for what it is. It reminds me a little bit of, there's a moment after 9/11, and particularly that first, 2002, 2003, and the run up to the 2004 election with Bush, where all of these powerful forces in American life aligned with George W. Bush. The Dixie Chicks were blacklisted because they said something disparaging about George W. Bush. And it was clarifying then in that moment to understand the forces arrayed against you. And in the end, no matter how much the people who dissented against George W. Bush were berated, they were proven right in the end. And I don't think that image of those guys standing there in line at that inauguration is going to age very well. In fact, I feel almost certain it won't.
You write in your book, The Siren's Call, we have a country full of megaphones, a crushing wall of sound, the swirling lights of 24/7 casino blinking at us, all part of a system minutely engineered to take our attention away from us for profit. Under these conditions, anything resembling democratic deliberation seems not only impossible, but increasingly absurd, like trying to meditate in a strip club. The next 4 years are bringing what?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I find the total uncertainty liberating. You know, I remember so clearly, this is a really important lesson. I remember first impeachment of Donald Trump, which happens in January and February of 2020. And when it ends in him being acquitted by the United States Senate, there were all these stories about what this year was going to be and how Trump was resurgent. And I remember thinking to myself, I was stressing about travel because it was an election year and I was going to have to go to these primary states. I was thinking about childcare. And of course, COVID hit 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later. Everything I'd stressed about, everything I thought about, all the think pieces, all the stuff about Trump, it completely washed away. None of it mattered. And I've just taken that lesson to heart that we do not know what's coming. You can prepare, you can stick to your principles, you can think about your craft, you can think about what you want to do as a citizen. But I have no idea what these next 4 years are going to be like, and neither has anyone else. And the degree to which I have no idea, I actually find like personally liberating.
But you're assuming that the government is going to get ransacked, correct? Are you not assuming?
Oh yeah, I don't think it's going to be good, I guess, if that's your question. No, I mean, I think this thing, the meme coin, the crypto meme coin, he launched it, a day before becoming president. That people who are hardcore crypto heads, like partisans of crypto, love crypto, think it's the future, they were disparaging it as a blatant, grift. This is going to be a ransacking, a pillaging, a plundering. It's going to be corrupt. I think the first day and the executive orders he signed confirmed all the worst fears and also made the people who were extending some, sense of good faith look a little silly. It's gonna be bad. Just the question to me is like, how bad, and what it implicates for all of us. But yes, it is not going to be good. The government is not going to be run well. That's one thing I feel confident predicting.
The whole changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America just felt like a complete distraction because of those executive orders. What do you think the worst executive order was signed into law yesterday?
That's a really good question. I'm still, first of all, let me be honest, I'm still sorting through them. I think there's a few. The worst in terms of its intent is the revocation of birthright citizenship, which is a foundational American right. It's plainly in the text of the 14th Amendment. It was put in the text of the 14th Amendment by the second founding generation of this country who came together to write the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments after the bloody Civil War to try to found a multiracial pluralistic democracy.
The naturalized...
To attack that...
I'm sorry. No. I don't want to stop your train of thought. I thought you were done. Please continue.
To attack that is the cornerstone is to attack the foundation of the project of the nation's second founding after the Civil War, which is a multiracial democracy. It is a distinguishing characteristic, birthright citizenship in the U.S. It's one of our finest attributes. He cannot undo it through a piece of paper. It's in the Constitution. But in terms of what that represented, not in terms of its effect, which I hope will be essentially nothing, that was the most insidious.
It was certainly symbolic, but it does face several legal challenges. I don't know how you actually go about enforcing this. One of the reasons, as you mentioned, constitutional. What does this look like?
It's a great question. It should, again, who knows with this Supreme Court, it should get blocked immediately and then challenged and then thrown out. Blatantly unconstitutional. The plain text of the Constitution means what the plain text of the Constitution means. And so in that respect, in terms of the effect it's going to have, I don't think necessarily that was the worst, because I hope, to your point, that it basically gets thrown out and doesn't go into effect. The pardons and commutations for the January 6th folks, including people that assaulted cops, people getting out of prison who had 22 years for seditious conspiracy. I mean, that just says something. It's not just that granting them this clemency itself is bad, though it is. It's the message it communicates about political violence, about his support for political violence, about his encouraging future political violence. That is pretty dangerous stuff that he's playing with.
All right, Chris, objectively, though, okay? Objectively. Explain.
Objectively. I'm always objective, Dan.
Explain to me the difference between Joe Biden pardoning his son and Donald Trump pardoning all of the January 6th people because a Proud Boy here in Miami who got 20-plus years through our legal system is now at home ready for the next time the violence might be needed. Can you explain
Yeah.
objectively the difference between those two pardons? Because both pardons seem wrong.
Yeah, I don't think I don't support the Hunter Biden pardon. I think it was the wrong thing to do. I think the difference is in the details of the cases. I mean, it should be really clear. Hunter Biden was prosecuted for what's called felon in possession, which is extremely rare case. I mean, we're talking about a handful of cases, despite the fact there are tens, hundreds of thousands, millions of addicts across the country. Basically, he had a gun and he said he wasn't a drug addict when he got it, but he was a drug addict. There are former federal prosecutors, including former Republican congressmen, who say this thing is never, ever, ever charged. The only reason that he was charged was because his name was Hunter Biden. He was on the wrong side of essentially presidential privilege, and that would be the justification for that pardon. I still think because he's your son and you're the president, you shouldn't do it. But on the merits, it was just as an empirical matter, an extremely, extremely, extremely rare form of prosecution that was brought to bear on him. And I think it's because of what his last name was. Now, that said, look, if they had gone through and they had taken a class of 300 or 400 of those folks convicted for January 6th who never assaulted a cop, never celebrated what they did, walked into the building and walked out, possibly that's more defensible. They did not do that. This was a full jailbreak. And in fact, J.D. Vance, just days before they did it, said, obviously, you shouldn't give clemency to people that assaulted police officers. People that assaulted police officers got sprung yesterday. I mean, we've got the tape. Like, you could look at them bashing in the heads of cops, and now they're walking the streets. Like, that is on a completely different level than anything that happened in terms of Biden pardons.
I want your attention. I need your attention. Here is how I mastered my own. It's the opinion guest essay he has written for the New York Times. Why did you write it? You're being introspective during dark times about being complicit to feeding this machine, you whore?
Well, I think that, I think like all of us in this age, I wrestle with being inside my own head, you know? I mean, I don't know if you guys are this way. If you walk around all day with podcasts in your ears, if you leave your car if you leave your phone in the car and you stop and double park and you run to a Starbucks and you're getting a cup of coffee and you reach for the phone and it's not there, then you have this moment of panic. You're like, oh, what's that moment of panic? Like, why has it become harder and harder to live with our own thoughts, to be alone with ourselves? And the reason is we are being conditioned away from it. And the more we're conditioned away from it, the more difficult it is to be with our own thoughts. But being with our own thoughts is the stuff of life. It's all we got. We don't get to outrun our own head. So for me, the project of, this book and the project I'm trying to work through is, what are we running from? Like, how do we get back to being okay with our own thoughts? How can I go for a 20-minute walk and just, be in my brain and not need some escape?
Dan, where was the comma in your question?
Mm-hmm.
Was it
You
comma
called him a
you
whore.
whore, or was it that you're whoring this? Also, it was a great deflection because I believe you called an essay
I just
an
ignored
essay.
it.
C.J. Stroud.
I did call it an essay, yes. Brown wave.
But what happened to the comma? You called him a whore.
I did call him a whore. He knows what I'm talking about. Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show, Juju. Being with your own thoughts. Is it the stuff of life? No, I think he's I think the reason
on the poll. Dangerous game, Dano.
I think the reason that he's written this think piece is because he understands that in some ways the liberal media elite was outplayed by a group of people who realized earlier than the mainstream media did that they were buying up people right and left. And this is where not just he gets turned around, I get turned around as well. And I'm on the losing side of a fight where that particular oaf took out journalism. That thing ended up just wandering around yelling fake news, and because he's a reality TV contestant, he now gets he gets immunity all over the place, and all of our judges, so that this guy, a journalist, is on here saying, yeah, it's unconstitutional, but who knows what the Supreme Court is going to do? Like, to take a hatchet to America like that? Like, how the hell is this the first day?
It's pretty tough. I mean, look, yesterday was I was watching it as a professional, so there's a certain amount of like regulation that one undertakes, but it was tough to watch. I'm not going to joke. I mean, I'm not going to deny it or joke about it. And look, this is I can't offer any comforting words about like who wins in the end. You know, I think that I don't know who wins in the end.
It's
I've
always
got some
Mahomes.
hopes.
I mean,
Look, I wish we had Mahomes. You know, I don't know. I don't know who our Mahomes is. We're biding our time in the regular season and just waiting to bust it out in the playoffs. But I don't know. I hope we have our own Mahomes.
How do you feel about deep dish pizza?
It's a great question. I love it. I think it's one of those things that, you know, that's maybe a once or twice a year thing. Like I feel about it the way I feel about turkey. Like when it, in the right context, in the right place and time, it's delicious. Do I want a deep dish pizza, you know, multiple nights a week? You know, it's no.
it's a commitment.
Deep dish pizza.
Right.
It's a commitment, and it is a it is a great thing to savor when you're doing it. But like you're not gonna run up on a deep dish pizza a few times a week.
No, but once a week.
No.
Once a week is really pushing.
That's a bad idea.
It's
Are
aggressive.
you would
It's
you go
aggressive.
once a week?
I
You
can't
would go
get
once
no,
a week
I
deep
ca-
dish?
Look,
Would you?
I would be 600 pounds if I lived in Chicago. 600 pounds.
Because of the deep
This
dish.
show
love.
would be my 600-pound life if I lived. Yes, because yes, it's like 3 pizzas on top of each other. Like, why wouldn't I want 3 pizzas on top of each other? Why wouldn't I want more? What's happening here with this gold chain?
It's brass. It's $60.
That's a fine.
Okay, is it a fine? Then I didn't know that it was.
My wife got it for me. You know, I was born in the Bronx in 1979, so I'm just as I age, I'm just aging back into my roots.
Does she love
Christopher
you?
Lofredo Hayes. Does my wife love me? She does love me.
A brass necklace?
That's why I got a $60 brass chain.
That is a killer one question to ask in an interview, Billy. Thank you for
I'm
your.
going to tell her you said that. You're going to hear from her.
Thank you for.
You're not getting a brass chain.
We appreciate you being on Maiden Voyage. Good talking to you, Chris. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, fellas.
The Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Stugotz, there are a couple of things that I wanted to talk to you about that we did not get to earlier in the show because we were just wandering around. And Xavier Lucas has entered the transfer portal, or he has come to the University of Miami through a portal that his attorney is arguing does not exist. Just
Correct.
so I can get this
Like a
right.
secret portal?
I want him.
Correct. Here's how the appeal
I
went.
love a secret
Here's how
portal.
the appeal went. Wisconsin's like, well, we're not going to let you into the transfer portal, and guess what? The transfer portal is closed up now, so you can't go. And Xavier Lucas and his representatives were like, the transfer portal doesn't actually exist, and the NCAA was like, you got us there, pal. We didn't
how that-
actually know.
that is how that happened.
Anyone
Yeah.
would figure this thing out that it's not actually. My bad.
Yes, well, what I loved about it, it bypassed all of the other ways that these are announced. And once I got involved and read, his attorney said, and then I just saw the NCAA backpedaling from, we don't have any actual power here. We like to complain about things and pretend like we're making the rules, but we're not allowed. We don't have any jurisdiction here.
No, and look, the Big Ten, especially in its statement, and Wisconsin have used a lot of big words, but it's all flash paper because they've already lost in all the meaningful places. Essentially, what they're only doing with these statements, very strongly worded, is begging the NCAA to get safe harbor status from Congress. It's basically a press release that says, Congress save us so our illegal cartel can continue going with impunity because we just lose case after case after case. The argument is he signed a document committing to us for 2 years, not a full contract, but we get to keep him here. They're arguing we get to keep him here and play for us. We get to force him because we're going to pay him to. That, quite honestly, is a step away from slavery. Like what they were trying to actually execute and the arguments that they were making, which, again, they lost everywhere. And they're trying to win this in the court of public opinion, but you have to pay attention to what these statements don't actually say. What it is it's a sad, pathetic attempt for a conference and several programs within that conference that have gotten away with skirting the rules all the time and are once again upset that they just can't poach local kids like they used to. So they lost already, and now they're sore losers just begging for Congress to bail
Well,
them out.
let me stop you for a second because we just got done, Stugotz. This is a reason for celebration, and we can also speak honestly at the greed and the churning of bodies that is making profit out of football on the professionalization of what we watched last night, which is Ohio State beats Notre Dame. Everyone's riveted, and the last Chiefs game is the biggest number in the history of ESPN. Goodell comes out and says 18 games, and we're now playing 15 and we're playing 16. Like that's those records up there when Notre Dame and Ohio State are playing are 14-1 and 13-2. That's a lot of games being played, and we just keep throwing more and more into it as Saban makes a lot of money while saying X, Y, and Z on NIL while being a paid lobbyist on behalf of I will protect saintly football. I'm Saint Nick from Alabama. And the business of it is such that Cam Ward is now worth about 6 or 7 times what he was just paid in one season, and Leonard Hamilton has his players boycotting games and a lawsuit because they want their $1.5 million. And Mike Ryan is saying, and this is when a discussion like this goes flammable, when you turn this amateurism this promptly into just greed, capitalism, it's going to get crazy. The left tackle's about to cost $10 million, and if he's protecting Cam Ward, you're going to get crazy. Mike Ryan says a step away from slavery. And once you say slavery, you lose just about everybody. A step away from slavery.
I own your rights. I tell you where to work even though you don't want to actually work there. You tell me what it's a step away from.
It's what's happening with business. And, of course, they're going to try and get the shackles on the freedom. It's been the problem. That you don't understand what a great, quiet secret this was that we all kept together on the idea of like, yeah, just churn through their bodies for profit and everyone will make the money. It'll eventually be the ACC and all the guys in the media or all the guys in the press box in their orange jackets. But then the television executives will steal it from the bowl executives because the bowl executives had this grift on the download quiet for 25 years, running a straight up crime organization, a step away from slavery. Like they've been doing it. It was just all agreed upon. The terms, we all agreed. Yeah, I'll do rah-rah on Saturdays and it'll feel good. And I won't pay attention that they're paying Ricky Williams with a briefcase full of watches. Like the watch.
So the ones making the most noise are the ones that got away with it before, and they don't like it. And that includes Nick Saban, who said one roster's spending $30 million and the other one's spending $3 million. That's not sustainable. Is it, Nick? Is it? Because I guess you were one of those rosters that were just paying $3 million back when everybody was paying $0. Also, what's unsustainable is you being the highest paid employee in the state of Alabama. That's what's unsustainable. But you never hear him complain about the money that the coaches are making.
Why are we surprised that the old school coaches don't like the new system? Of course they don't like it. They've been stripped of all their power.
Yeah, they got
right.
unprecedented power,
Yes.
and they got to abuse a system, and they used to turn their nose at people and think and get to fool their fan bases and people nationwide that they were doing it the right, clean way. It's it's a lot of loser talk, too. Because there used to be an honor amongst thieves. But when you got Nick Saban out there and the Big Ten doing what it did, it's kind of pathetic.
Jessica has popped into the call here, Stugotz. I was looking forward to her being here today. She was at the game. I was looking forward to crowning her the queen of all of college football as a very ardent Notre Dame supporter. And then they come out last night and the first drive, exactly how you want Notre Dame to play and start that game. And then Ohio State just sort of happened. The next, 3 methodical drives down the field, no real pressure on the quarterback, converting every third down. And then the game gets away from Notre Dame. How was it, Jessica? I'm sorry. I am sorry for your pain. It was a great Notre Dame football season, and I wanted that game to be closer earlier because once Ohio State got carried away, they proved over the last month that they were better than everyone else in college football.
Yeah, but we'll always have that opening drive, Dan. What a beautiful drive it was. I've never seen a drive like that. I mean, Pacific Coast Highway. Yeah. I don't know. The other scenic American drives, nothing like an 18-play, 75-yard drive, 9.5 minutes. Your quarterback's puking and rallying. I loved it.
It was exactly the way the game needed to start. It needed to start. It just had to stay there the entire rest of the game.
It needed to end.
Herb Street said, for them to have a chance in this game, they need to run him about like 15, 20 times in this game. And the first drive, he runs 9 times and is puking afterwards. The only way
It was like the Ravens Steelers wild card game, but like Lamar Jackson was on the team that I was rooting for once. I'm like, oh, they're going to keep running him. Okay, sure, it's working.
Were you okay with possibly hospitalizing Riley Leonard if it meant you got more drives like that?
He was okay with it. I mean, I think he would have definitely taken. He was so sad after the game. That made me sad. Seeing him and Jack Kaiser, who's been at Notre Dame for 6 seasons, after the game was sad. But like you said, Dan, like Ohio State, they were the best team in college football all season, even though they lost some games and had some really bad moments and some bad games. Like, they were better than Notre Dame. So I think Notre Dame really lost this game in the second quarter. Ohio State really won this game in the second quarter.
Oh, but there's no shame, though, in the fact that over the last month of the season, like since December 21st, Ohio State beat 2 of the 3 best SEC teams, beat Oregon, the number 1 team in the country, and then beat a 1-loss Notre Dame team. And I think all of the wins were by double digits. Like,
yeah.
I don't know how you argue with that. Is a steamrolling we haven't seen over 4 games at the end of the season since LSU did it.
Yeah, it's like very different than what college football fans are used to, too. I mean, I've seen all these arguments about like devaluing the regular season. I'm not saying like the 12-team playoff is better or worse, but it is just different than what fans are used to. Like to have a team, that lost twice in the regular season go on a run like this and win the national championship is different. But you can't say that they didn't deserve it. You can't say they're not the best team in college football. They've beaten like 4 of the top 10 teams in the final AP poll just like in the last month. Like they're obviously stand out amongst a crowd of really good teams. And, unfortunately, I'm a Notre Dame fan, and Notre Dame was a really good team this year. They just weren't as good as Ohio State. And I think, it's a bummer. And obviously it got close late in the game, so there's like a little bit of hope. But at the end of the day, Ohio State was just, played a better full game, a better, more complete game. And so, yeah, they came away with the win. Much deserved, though, I think.
Jess, I know I'm playing the result a little bit because the field goal was doinked, and the miss actually did loom large there, as it was potentially a 10-point game. That could have still been a 1-score game, but I was surprised that Notre Dame decided to kick it at that moment. Were you?
Yeah, I was very surprised. That was the sort of in-game decision-making that went I kind of at this point in like the 3 years of Marcus Freeman, I kind of know when he's going to go for it, when he's not going to go for it. I was surprised, and I saw that, the math said it was a toss-up. It's basically you're 4 or 9 from like, the 9-yard line. The chances of scoring a touchdown on 4th and 9, very slim. The chance of making the field goal much higher, but you're only cutting it from a 2-possession game to a 2-possession game. So it is a toss-up at that point. I understand his explanation of it. I think that, obviously that's a kick that Mitch Jeter makes most of the time. Like he was hurt during the season, and so he wasn't a very accurate kicker. But in the postseason, he's been very, very good. He's made much longer field goals than that. So definitely the doink looms large. However, I understand the decision. Either way, it's a really tough spot. It's probably not what I would have wanted them to decide to do. But ultimately, yeah, it looks a lot worse because you missed a chip shot field goal there.
Juju, put it on the poll, please. Does the doink loom large?
It always does. Am I wrong to not care about Riley Leonard's disappointment after the game last night? Like, I understand the other guys, they poured 5 or 6 years into Notre Dame. He poured 1. Like, he was lucky to have that opportunity. I don't care what Riley Leonard felt like after the game. Sorry.
It's okay if you don't care about no one's making you care about Riley Leonard. You can care about whatever you want to care about. That's fine.
Put it on the poll.
I think Notre Dame fans care about it, but you don't have to care about it.
Put it on the poll. Does Stugotz have to care about Riley Leonard?
Why would you have to care?
You were close to getting me there. You really were. The tears. He was upset. Then you told me the other guy put in 6 years.
But Jess, I do think, Jess, I think people want to know how you felt. Do you immediately go to perspective? Great season. Oh my God, Ohio State is overwhelming, or does it? I mean, you had certainly after that first drive, you must have been like, oh, maybe.
I mean, yeah, like the first drive was great, and I was like, this is a good start. But going into the game, I think I was pretty realistic about it. Like, it had to be a low-scoring game for Notre Dame to win. I think it was a difficult test for Notre Dame. I predicted Ohio State would win. So I wasn't like expecting Notre Dame to pull one off. I hoped that they would, but yeah, I mean, honestly, to be honest, I know you guys want my tears. I understand this isn't fun for anyone to have perspective the day after losing a national championship game, but I had a really fun weekend. I got the media gift was this nice Nike fleece crew neck. I got a Perry the Pylon stuffed animal.
That's
I got
all
to
that really
see, like,
matters.
A lot of my
That's all that
I got to be on the field before a national championship
Feels
game
like you won.
and see the end of this amazing season come to its conclusion. It's been a really fun run, and I hope Notre Dame's back next year. I think there's so much young talent on this team. Obviously, Riley Leonard's gone, and CJ Carr will probably start at quarterback next year, and he, hasn't played before. He's a underclassman right now, but there's a lot to look forward to if you're a Notre Dame fan. And the last 3 games that they won were some of the most fun games Notre Dame's won in 30 years. So it's hard not to have that perspective, right? I didn't expect this team going into the season. We all had high expectations for Ohio State. This roster cost a ton of money. They did so well in the transfer portal, and they're always a great team. They're always in the hunt for the playoff. They're always in the hunt for the Big Ten championship. That wasn't how I really felt about Notre Dame going into the season. I thought this would be a really good Notre Dame team, and then some attrition started happening. They obviously lost to NIU, and I thought, like, okay, this is a above average Notre Dame team, but I don't expect them to play in the national championship game. Obviously, I was wrong. This is a well above average Notre Dame team, and they're the second best team in the country when all is said and done. So, I don't feel like this is like team of destiny stuff missing out on a championship.
We're out of time. I need to know the name of that thing. What is that toy that you got there
Harry.
that makes it all right? It makes everything all
Big
right.
winner. Yeah.
Big
Harry
winner. Look at that.
Pylon.
Yep.
Look at there. That's all you need in times of soothing. There it is. They
My
give her a
friend.
toy and everything is fine.
This episode of the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz is presented by Venmo.
The Block Spot on Twitter, on X, writes that Ohio State beat Oregon by 20, Texas by 14, Penn State by 7, Notre Dame by 11, Indiana by 23, Tennessee by 25. That's 1, 3, 3, 5, 5, 7. And then calls it the most dominant season in college football history. With 2 losses. Certainly the one the one I've seen that has the most losses, that is also the most dominant, I'd be willing to give you. I believe that LSU team that had Joe Burrow on it and Jamar Chase and had a bunch of – didn't they also have a bunch of first-rounders on
They also had Justin
defense?
Jefferson and Devin White and Greedy Williams. And
Yeah, they were pretty good for a while, that team. Ohio State did trail for just 6 minutes the entire college football playoff, though. 6 minutes total. Juju Gotti is with us. You saw some of his work. There will be more from Unrivaled. Juju, it was really nice to see those women have a real appreciation that your fandom seems to go back from before it was popular to be their fan.
Yes, sir. You feel me? And salute. I'm glad to be here. But yeah, man, I've been supporting these ladies for a while now, and it's beautiful to see that their work is finally being rewarded. You feel me? Especially like Brittany Griner getting in that trouble overseas because she has to make money during this time of the year and missing out on her family. And this is Unrivaled League is giving these ladies a great opportunity to stay home, keep their family. They got daycare facilities, they got makeup, they got everything in that facility. So I'm so happy and honored to be even like an inch involved the Unrivaled League.
I should tell people that Skipper is one of the part owner investors in that league, and I went out there and saw Juju this weekend over by the airport. You were surprised that a facility has sort of grown out of nowhere, right? You're not. It's right. A weird part of Miami to have a professional sports league.
Yes, sir. It was. I thought I was somewhere ducked off. You feel me? And it was right around the corner from the. I don't even want to call it just a gym because it's like a fairground almost, where you got attractions outside. You can shoot your own hoops. You can do so many activities if you have like kids with you. It's just all around a great place to be. And I urge everyone to go check it out at least once this year.
I would tell the audience as well that when Juju says getting in that trouble overseas, that's doing a little bit of work on a lot of details that Brittany Griner found herself in a Russian prison and then was swapped for a known terrorist during difficult. That's doing a lot of work, getting in that trouble overseas. What do you have for us on the polls today, Juju? Do we have any updates that are worth covering?
Yes, sir. And speaking of Brittany Griner right quick, she's testing free agency for the first time in her career. So look out. You dig me. First poll. Should Ohio State fire Ryan Day anyway? 78% of the audience says yes.
You
They
can't
should
lose
go
to
ahead.
Michigan.
I love it.
You can't lose to Michigan when it's the most dominant football team of all time.
And speaking of Ryan Day, I don't know if this was caught on TV. I was blessed and fortunate to go to the game last night. In the fourth quarter, they put Lou Holtz on the screen. And you would have thought they put Satan himself up there because I heard so many boos. I was on the Ohio State side, of course, but wow, that was amazingly funny. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life because he's so old. Salute to my boy Lou Holtz, though.
Lou Holtz said before the game that OSU has the talent, but Notre Dame had the heart, the culture, and the D. He predicted that Notre Dame would win simply because they're Notre Dame. I think a lot of people enjoyed Notre Dame losing just because they're Notre Dame.
Yep. Hey, yo. Number 2, hey, Mark Andrews, can you meet the media afterwards? 54% of the audience said yes.
I'm good. I'm glad we got to the bottom of that.
Straight to the
the guy fumbles, drop for his life, is going to be remembered by Bill Buckner. Hey, get out there in front of the media, jackass. Get out there and talk about your pain. Just sit in front.
It was so sad. That was so sad.
So
But
just
not.
to be clear, the majority of the audience says, hey, Mark Andrews, go be a professional. Give us your heartbreak so we can see your tears. All right.
Yep. The same way they wanted Jessica tears, but you can't get them, man.
You can't get 'em.
We got real adults around here, man. Third poll. Who has been better for the last 25 years? The Steelers or the Ravens?
Oh, this is a big one.
65% of the audience says the Ravens.
Ooh, even
Wow.
though the Steelers have won more championships. Interesting. The audience surprises me there. An upset.
Hell yeah. Next poll, bigger Barkley in Philadelphia, Saquon or Charles?
Come on, don't get disrespectful here. Don't be
Salute to
disrespectful.
Sir Charles. Saquon took it 55% to 45%.
No, you disrespectful people. No. You
Hey, man,
prisoners
rings.
of the moment. No.
Hey, man, the audience has spoken.
Those
You feel me?
kids.
Salute to the audience.
No, not
They're
salute to the audience. Those
Generational, man.
Those disrespectful Barkley's 70-year-old peers aren't on X.
Look, salute to some of the audience. Patrick Loomis, Dust Dye, Barry Lieberman, Mitchell Carter, Evan Clark. We all see you, Cloud Feet, and all the other people. Just a quick shout out to the audience. Next poll, were the Lions saving Eminem for the NFC Championship? 95% of the audience says yes. And $2 to me because I put weir instead of were. Venmo me.
A big, you got to know. We're not Venmoing you, Juju. You got to Venmo. You've got to Venmo us. This is the entire scam everyone's running around here. No one is still respecting the Venmo fine bucket. We're gonna need to get some enforcer around here to take care of this. Do we have any more polls?
Yes, the last poll: should the Lions trade for Stafford? 66% of the audience says yes.
It's a great question.
Audience is right.
Joker
Yes,
of
they
the
are.
week. Do we have a Joker of the week here? Do you have anything special lined up for anybody?
my
This is
goodness.
now Juju doesn't do a lot of judging. He does a lot of saluting. He wants sports celebrated. He's about sports positivity. But every once in a while, someone's behavior is malodorous enough that even Juju will call that person a Joker of the week. So what do we have, Juju?
Yes, the Joker of this week, unfortunately. Congratulations, brother, as well. But Ben Johnson for trusting Jameson Williams to make a throw in the fourth quarter down 10 points. Off his back foot, by the way. Like, sir, I don't know who or what you were doing in the locker room at halftime, but it wasn't plotting perfectly. So salute to brother Ben Johnson. Congratulations for your job. But, man, you broke the hearts of a lot of people that love Detroit in that instance. So
You
get
can't.
well soon, brother.
You can't trust Jameson's judgment. I think it's fair to say that in times of crisis, we just need to be careful about the Jameson judgment. I don't think that's slander to say that. Jameson's got enough judgment impairment that in that spot, I don't want him throwing the football.
Did you see him hunching the ground? He put 2 pumps.
Yes, he did.
He was 1 pump away from a flag.
Juju, good seeing you. Talk to you tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
From fireside conversations to football Sundays, winter means more moments with the coolest people in your life. Make these moments even better with Miller Lite, the great tasting light beer for people who love beer. A new year is a perfect time for friends, family, and a great tasting light beer. Tastes like Miller time. You know, 2024 had its ups, had its downs, had a lot of moments in it. For me, many of those moments, I had a Miller Lite right there by my side. I supplemented my time by making it a Miller time. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. Miller Lite has taste you know you can depend on. No games, no gimmicks, just a great beer for people who love beer. Miller Lite is brewed for taste. It hits different than other light beers, and it has simple ingredients like malted barley for rich, balanced toffee note flavors and that iconic golden color. The original light beer since 1975 and still the very best one. Miller Lite, great taste, 96 calories. Go to MillerLite.com/Dan to find delivery options near you. Or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere they sell beer. Tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.